Hola gente, ¿cómo está? Vamos a jugar un juego raro que me encontré en Steam. Es un juego de terror, pero a ver qué pasa. Espero que se escuche bien y todo. Y bueno, vamos a empezar a ver qué pasa, ¿no? Opciones, trivia, salir. Pues comenzar, ¿no? Vamos a comenzar de una vez. Dagon es una adaptación fiel e interactiva de la obra de H. P. Lovecraft, que se centra en el ambiente y la historia. En este juego no encontrarás decisiones complicadas, acción a raudales o gestión de inventario. Tu libertad de movimiento es limitada y tendrás que avanzar en la trama a través de lugares en los que transcurre. Vale.
I am writing this under an appreciable mental strain, since by tonight I shall be no more.
Durante la partida te encontrarás con elementos interactivos. Uno te permitirá avanzar en tu aventura, otros te otorgarán información interesante sobre el relato en el que se basa el juego, así como el contexto histórico del autor. Parte de información estará oculta. Para poder encontrar todos los secretos tendrás que enfocar tu mirada y buscar el símbolo arcano. Ay, ¿y cómo me muevo? ¿No se mueve esto?
Penniless, and at the end of my supply of the drug which alone makes life endurable, I can bear the torture no longer, and shall cast myself from this garret window into the squalid street below. Do not think from my slavery to morphine that I am a weakling or a degenerate. When you have read these hastily scrawled pages, you may guess, though never fully realize, why it is that I must have
Morfina. La morfina se empezó a utilizar en el siglo 9, creo. 9, y era práctica habitación para calmar. No, de 18. Perdón gente si no leo bien, pero me pongo nervioso. Pueden leer curiosidades de escuela.
It was in one of the most open and least frequented parts of the broad Pacific that the packet of which I was supercargo fell a victim to the German sea raid. The Great War was then at its very beginning, and the ocean forces of the Hun had not completely sunk to their later degradation, so that our vessel was made a legitimate prize, whilst we of her crew were treated with all the fairness and so liberal in when I finally found myself adrift and free. Never a competent navigator. Of the longitude, I knew nothing, and no island or coastline was in sight.
Creo que este juego es solamente así.
The weather kept fair, but neither ship nor land appeared, and I began to despair in my solitude upon the heaving vastness of Unbroken. The change happened whilst I slept. Its details I shall never know, for my slumber, though troubled and dream-infested, was
Hola. Una gente que no talasofobia.
When at last I awoke, it was to discover myself half sucked into a slimy expanse of hellish black mire, in which my boat lay. Though one might well imagine that my first sensation would be of wonder at so prodigious and unexpected a transformation of scenery, for there was in the air and in the rotting soil, the region was putrid with the carcasses of decaying fish and of other less describable things which perhaps I should. There was nothing within hearing and nothing in sight save a vast reach of black slime. Yet the very completeness of the stillness and the homogeneity of the sun was blazing down from a sky which seemed to me almost black. As I crawled into the stranded boat, I realized that only one theory could explain my position. Through some unprecedented volcanic upheaval, a portion of the ocean floor must have been thrown to the surface, exposing regions for which innumerable millions of years had lain hidden under unfathomable watery depths. Nor were there any seafowl to prey upon the dead things. For several hours I sat thinking or brooding in the boat, which lay upon its side. As the day progressed, the ground lost some of its stickiness and seemed likely to dry. That night I slept but little, and the next day I made for myself a pack containing food and water, preparatory to an. On the third morning, I found the soil dry enough to walk upon with ease. The odor of the fish was maddening, but I was too much. All day I forged steadily westward, guided by a faraway hummock which rose higher than any.
Una ballena.
That night I encamped, and on the following day still travelled toward the hummock, though that object seemed scarcely nearer than when I had first espied it. By the fourth evening, I attained the base of the mound, which turned out to be much higher than it had appeared from a distance. An intervening valley setting it out in sharper relief from too weary to ascend. I know not why my dreams were so wild that night, but ere the waning and fantastically gibbous moon had risen far up, I was awake in a cold perspiration, determined to such vision, and in the glow of the moon I saw how unwise. Without the glare of the parching sun, my journey would have cost me less energy. Indeed, I now felt quite able to perform the ascent. Picking up my pack, I started for the crest. I have said that the unbroken monotony of the rolling plain was, but I think my horror was greater when I gained the summit of the mound and looked down the other side into an immeasurable pit or canyon, whose black recesses the moon had not yet soared high enough to illumine. I felt myself on the edge of the, peering over the rim into a fathomless chaos of eternal night. Through my terror ran curious reminiscences and of Satan's as the moon climbed higher in. Ledges and outcroppings of rock afforded fairly easy footholds for a descent, whilst after a drop of only a few hundred feet, the declivity urged on by an impulse which I cannot definitely analyze, I scrambled with difficulty down the rocks and stood on the gazing into the Stygian deeps, where no light had yet penetrated. All at once, my attention was captured by a vast and singular object on the opposite slope, an object that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of the ascending. That it was merely a gigantic piece of stone, I soon assured myself, but I was conscious of a distinct impression that a closer scrutiny filled me with sensations for despite I perceived beyond a doubt that the strength whose massive bulk had known the workmanship and perhaps dazed and frightened, yet not without a certain thrill of the scientists or archaeologists. Near the zenith, shone weirdly and vividly above the towering steeps that hemmed in the chasm. And revealed the fact that a far-flung across the on whose surface the writing was in a system of hieroglyphics unknown to me and unlike anything I'd ever seen in books. Consisting several characters obviously represented marine things which are unknown to the modern world. But who? It was the visible across the intervening water on account of their enormous size, were I think that though the creatures were shown disporting like fishes in the waters of some marine grotto, or paying homage at some monolithic shrine.
Adorando algún monumento menolítico se encontraba también bajo el agua.
Of their faces,
no me atrevo a describir con detalles sus rostros y formas,
for the mere remembrance makes me grow faint. Grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer.
Más allá de la imaginación de Poe o de Bulwer.
They were damnably.
Eran detestablemente humanos en general, excepto por sus manos y sus pies palmeados, unos labios inexplicablemente anchos y flácidos.
Glassy.
Ojos abultados y vidriosos, y otros rasgos cuyo recuerdo es aún más desagradable.
Curiously and
curiosamente parecían cincelados de forma desproporcionada desproporcionada con el resto de la escena.
For one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale, represented as but little larger than himself. I remarked, as I say, but in a moment decided that they were some tribe whose last awestruck at this unexpected glimpse into a past beyond the conception of the most daring anthropoid, I stood musing whilst the moon cast queer reflections. Then, suddenly, I saw it. With only a slight churning to mark its rise to the surface, the thing slid into view above the dark waters. Like and loathsome, it darted like a stupendous monster of nightmares to the mind. About which it flung its gigantic scaly arms, while it bowed its hideous head and gave vent to... I think I went mad then. Of my frantic ascent of the slope and cliff, and of my delirious journey back to the stranded boat, I remember little. I sang a great deal and laughed oddly when I was unable. I have indistinct recollections of a great storm sometime after I reached the boat. At any rate, I know that I heard pearls of thunder and other When I came out of the shadows, I was in a San Francisco hospital, brought thither by the captain of the American ship which had picked up my boat in mid-ocean. In my delirium, I had said much, but found that my words had been given scant attention. Of any land upheaval in the Pacific, my rescuers knew nothing. Nor did I deem it necessary to insist upon a thing which I knew they... Once I sought out a celebrated ethnologist. and amused him with peculiar questions regarding the ancient Philistine legend of Dagon, the fish god. But soon perceiving that he was It is at night. But the drug has given only transient surcease. So often I ask myself if it could not all have been a pure fantasy, a mere freak of fear. This I ask myself. I cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may at this very moment be worship. I dream of a day when the land shall sink and the dark ocean shall ascend amidst universal pandemonium. The end. I hear. It shall not find me. God, that hand! The window! The window!